Welcome to the Hey Mama Homeschool Show, centered around family life and home education. How do you get homeschooling and housework done? How do you help children who are struggling? How do you teach a rebellious child? We have answers. You pour into your family daily, and we are here to help you. Brought to you by the Old Schoolhouse, your trusted partner for over 20 years.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hey Mama Homeschool Show. I'm your host, Christine, and I am a homeschooling mom of two boys, and we are in Ontario, Canada. And I have the privilege of working for the Old Schoolhouse, specifically in the division of schoolhouseteachers.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Alert Academy. The Alert Academy is a post-high school discipleship program for young men with the goal of forging extraordinary men who influence their world for Christ. Find out more at alertacademy.com. So today's episode is entitled, What Do Homeschool Graduates Look Like? And maybe you're listening and you're wondering, is this the path for you to take? Are you going to homeschool through high school? And what does that mean for your child? And and what is that going to even look like? And so maybe you had some previous ideas of what they look like, but over the last couple of years with the spike in homeschooling, and I'm not talking about just, the COVID happening and everybody pulling their kids out of school. This is the growth of the homeschooling world has been happening for quite a while. And so homeschool graduates, they are out there and they are a diverse group with a wide range of experiences and backgrounds. So they're not, this specific type of person that, you can look at a magazine and know that this particular person or they must be homeschooled. Because really, you can't tell because they come from all around different socioeconomic, cultural, and religious backgrounds. So they can look like your neighbor. They can look like anyone that you see walking on the streets or, in that office job. You might be surprised. I know for myself, I've come across many people, and you wouldn't think that, and you're sometimes I've been pleasantly surprised to find out that they were also homeschooled, and it's such a testament to homeschoolers to see so many of them out there who have graduated and have success stories. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But what unites all of the homeschool graduates out there is the unconventional educational path they have taken, which is homeschooling. And they were learning outside the traditional norm of what a classroom setting looks like. So you might wonder, what are some of the common characteristics or traits among homeschool graduates? So the two key traits that I've noticed in my dealings with homeschool graduates over the years are flexibility and adaptability. And if you're a homeschooler and you've been doing this for a few years, you know that homeschooling is all about flexibility and adapting because changes happen all the time. And homeschooling parents know that you gotta roll with the punches. And so homeschool graduates often demonstrate a strong ability to adapt to different learning environments. So many homeschoolers do road schooling, this term called road schooling, where they just hop in their RV or their van and they're traveling around the country. And they just roll with it. They you can pack up your books and just go with it and navigate through challenges. Sometimes life throws a curveball and you just got to change your schedule. Homeschoolers know how to adapt. And they also tend to be very curious, which leads to interest-led learning. And they're self-motivated, they're critical thinkers. And when you are teaching your kids at home, this allows for a more personalized approach to learning, which is so key for those, especially those high school years. Now, maybe you're wondering if keeping your teenager at home for the high school years, maybe it might put them at a disadvantage. And this is one of the common misconceptions about what it means for your teenager to graduate without a high school diploma for one. And so you might be wondering, is this going to be a disadvantage? And I'll tell you, there are actually advantages for homeschool graduates being homeschooled as compared to those who were traditionally educated through the public school system. And so one major advantage is the flexibility to tailor curriculum to individual learning. And like I mentioned, this allows for personalized attention. So this means they're going to foster a deeper understanding of the subjects. Whereas if they were in a classroom, a public classroom setting, the space is shared, the learning is shared. You're splitting the teacher's attention between 20, maybe 30 students, depending on how big your class is. At home, you get one-on-one instruction, which often leads to faster learning, and it gives the students the ability to progress at their own pace. So you're not just following along just because everybody else is following along. Once you master something, then you can move on. And so many homeschoolers like to follow this approach of mastering subjects before they move on. So it's not about, okay, we're in year 4, so you're in grade 4, and then, once it's the next year, you got to move on to grade 5. In my homeschool, for sure, if there is a subject that we are struggling with, we stick with it. And, and it's not a matter of, holding back, quote unquote. But it's giving your child the opportunity to master it. And this is going to give them skills later on in life to know that they shouldn't quit, or they shouldn't, belittle, okay, well, I can't do math, so I'm just going to ignore it. But look for different ways to problem solve and see, how else can we accomplish this? How else can we figure this out? And then you've got the time, because you're at home, to work at your own pace to figure this out. And so when they're out there in the world and they're working on a project or a task that is seemingly difficult, they're already going to have that skill to say, okay, let me take a moment. I've got tools, I've got ways that I can use to figure this problem out, and to look different, maybe at different resources, different people to bring in and to help, and they'll be stronger for it. So one of the other misconceptions about homeschooling, especially when it comes to, okay, so now you're at the point where they're gonna go out into the world once they graduate, there's that whole question of socialization again. And contrary to this popular belief, homeschoolers are, in fact, very well socialized. And my kids can definitely attest to that. And they're only 11 and 7 right now, but most people that they interact with are overwhelmed by, one, that they're not afraid to talk to people, and they're very comfortable approaching people and engaging in conversation, and two, their vocabulary is so vast that people are wondering, how on earth did you learn all of these things? And so then they get to say, well, my mom did, we were homeschooled. And so that opens up some wonderful conversations sometimes. And that just goes to show you that, homeschoolers for sure are very well socialized, and they're able to engage with diverse groups in their communities and through participating in extracurricular activities. They're always building strong interpersonal skills, which is going to translate once they get older and they get into that post-secondary environment. They're going to have that ability to interact with people of all ages, because it's not going to just be, their peers anymore. You're going to be in a workforce that's going to have, a diverse community. It's going to have different ages, people from different social and cultural backgrounds. And so they're going to have a well-rounded development for this. And so I encourage you to look past that socialization myth. And hey, if you haven't listened to Stephanie Morrison's episode on socialization, that was our previous episode. It's called actually Mythbusters, Socialization and Isolation. Take a listen. You'll be encouraged by that. Hopefully that'll put that worry to rest. And I'll just take a moment to remind you that this episode is sponsored by the Alert Academy. The Alert Academy is a post-high school discipleship program for young men with the goal of forging extraordinary men who influence their worlds for Christ. Find out more at alertacademy.com. So one of the other things that we want to look at, so we looked at the benefits of being homeschooled before, you're making that transition into post-secondary. But what kind of options are out there for homeschool graduates? Because, yeah, like I mentioned before, one of the biggest fears is that they won't be able to get into college or university, or they won't be able to get a job because they don't have that GED or high school diploma or whatever you have in your state area for high school graduates. And I'll tell you, there are so many opportunities that are evolving and growing because institutions out there are realizing that homeschoolers are out there and they're here to stay, and they're bringing a wealth of knowledge and skills to the workforce or to the post-secondary institutions. And this is good news for us who may be just getting started, and or we've got young ones like myself. So I have no doubt in my mind that when my kids are old enough to start making those decisions as to where they want to go, there's going to be so many opportunities, and so many successfully transition to college and further their interests in whatever fields that they want to pursue. And you know what? Some of them even find that they're better equipped for the demands of a higher education due to the fact that they were self-directed in their learning experience. Then, there are opportunities for vocation, for job training, apprenticeships, and many of them are, starting their own small businesses that allow them to pursue those passions and interests that they were already pouring into because of being homeschooled. And I'll tell you, I am a firm believer in interest-led learning. And even though my kids are 11 and 7, if they show an interest in a particular topic, we dive right into it, because you never know if this is the field that they're going to end up in. And so I've got one who's obsessed with marine life, and hey, he could turn out to be a marine biologist, and how cool would that be? So he busies himself studying all kinds of things about ocean life, and he'll tell you all the different kinds of whales and different kinds of dolphins that I didn't even know existed. And he could tell you from where they live in the world to what they eat. And it's just fascinating how excited he is about anything to do with marine life, to be honest. And my second one is just so engrossed in history. And what, he may be a professor of history whatever field he wants to go into. It's exciting to see them just be passionate about what they're learning, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And so, if you're still doubting and you're still wondering, there have been a number of success stories out there among homeschool graduates. And I mean, there are entrepreneurs who credit their creativity and problem solving skills to their homeschooling experience. You just have to find them, like whatever homeschooling circle you're in, ask around, ask for those homeschool graduates and their stories and listen in, because they do have wonderful stories to tell. Others have excelled in academics and they've become leaders in those fields that they became experts in. And hey, if you wanted to hear some of those stories, we have a few interviews that we did with a few homeschool graduates. We had on the Canadian Schoolhouse, which is a division of the old Schoolhouse. I'm going to put the link in the show notes for you, but we've got two interviews that you can listen to and be encouraged for how they walked through that process, how easy it was to move from homeschool right into college, right into the workforce. So definitely, if you can hop on to the show notes, please do and listen to those testimonies of, being a successful homeschool graduate. And definitely check out the link for other encouraging posts on post-secondary education. And that will be from the Canadian Schoolhouse. And you'll find that homeschool graduates often adapt well to college precisely because of their ability to be self-directed learners. And see, that self-directed learning only comes from that ability to do this at home. So they're accustomed to taking responsibility for their education, and they have learned how to manage their time effectively. And colleges recognize this. They recognize that homeschoolers have good study skills, and colleges want this. They want good students because, hey, it does well for their numbers, right? So if you're still not convinced, I found an article from the Old Schoolhouse magazine entitled, "Are the Home Educated Doing Well? Why? And if so?" And this is an article by Brian Ray, who is from the National Home Education and Research Institute. And I'll make sure that article is in the show notes for you as well to read more about that. And speaking of NARI, which is the National Home Education and Research Institute, you can find all sorts of data collected on home education to help you make informed decisions, especially when you're deciding to pursue homeschooling through the high school years and beyond. So you can check that out. I'll have the link there for you. And yeah, I hope that you are encouraged to push through and to see that there is value in maintaining the course. I know many people, even in my life, they come and they ask, okay, you're just going to homeschool, for the elementary years, but then you're going to put them in high school, right? Because there's that fear out there that you can't go further without going to a public high school. And that is absolutely not true. It is basically all that it is a fear. And it doesn't have to be something that scares you. Your teenager is going to have so many opportunities in front of them. And I just encourage you, do the research, talk to other homeschoolers, like I mentioned, and stay the course. You can do it. And my advice is to embrace the journey, stay flexible. Remember that those two key traits, flexibility and adaptability, and trust the process. Homeschooling through the high school years requires dedication and commitment. But hey, you've already dedicated your time and committed to your children that you were going to homeschool. So you're already halfway there. You just got to stick it out. And I'll tell you, the rewards in their individual learning and personal development are going to be so immeasurable. So seek out the support from the homeschooling communities, explore those resources, and remember that every child is unique. So you get to tailor the approach to meet their needs. Every child's journey is going to be different. And that's why you just got to embrace the journey and stay flexible. So I hope you were encouraged by this. Let me say a quick word of prayer. Dear Lord, I pray for the homeschooling parents right now who are wrestling with this idea of pushing through those high school years, whether to continue on, whether to go through and graduate from homeschooling. I pray that you will put their mind at ease. And I pray that you will continue to guide them, give them the ideas, give them the inspiration that they need to do this confidently, and help them find the resources and the support that they need, because it's out there. So Lord, just help us to keep our eyes open and our ears open to hear what we need to hear, and to not let in those negative fears and thoughts that would discourage us from pursuing this wonderful journey of homeschooling. So I pray that you will strengthen each one, that you will bless each family who is listening, and just help us daily. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So all those notes that I mentioned, all those links, you'll find them in the show notes, plus so much more. You will find more articles, schoolhouseteachers.com resources, courses, etc. And all of these can be found on the homeschoolshow.com. You'll find show notes for all of our episodes. So, if you missed an episode, you can always go back. You can listen in and find all those links for helpful resources at any time. And speaking of episodes, I'll tell you what's coming up next. We've got cursive, copywork, and comprehension. Then we've got special needs homeschooling. It can be done. And then we've got homeschool moms for the win. Let's celebrate. So don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening so you don't miss one of these episodes that are coming up. And we will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.